Wow, what a season. 22 races have been raced, and although the winner was already decided, there was still a lot of things to race for. One of those things was the second place in the Drivers' Championship. Next to this, we also witnessed the last race for Sebastian Vettel, Nicholas Latifi, Mick Schumacher and Daniel Ricciardo. Although the last two are thought to stay around the paddock next year in a reserve role. What was your most memorable moment of the season? Let us know in the comments down below. Let's dive into today's topic and find out why it was a disastrous weekend for Red Bull and Sergio Perez especially. After this, you'll probably understand why he was furious at some people. In the end, Charles Leclerc beat Sergio Perez to finish second in the 2022 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and in the Formula 1 World Championship, trailing a dominant Max Verstappen. With Leclerc and Perez tied on points heading into the weekend, and especially given the Brazil Red Bull team orders controversy, the focus in Abu Dhabi was on whether Ferrari could salvage the championship runner-up spot for its former title contender, or Red Bull could claim its first ever Drivers' Championship 1-2. After making a better getaway, Perez had a half look at Red Bull teammate Verstappen for the race lead into the first corner, but was rebuffed, and then did the same to Leclerc when the Ferrari had a sniff down the inside into the left-hander onto the long back straight. Following that, the top three began to spread out, and it appeared that Leclerc had little chance of defending Perez. However, the Ferrari began to close the gap on the Red Bull, with Perez among the first to pit on lap 14. Losing time on his outlap due to being repassed by Sebastian Vettel after running wide at the turn 6-7 chicane. Rather than reacting quickly and attempting an undercut, Ferrari kept Leclerc out for 6 more laps. Even though he rejoined 6 seconds after Perez, he had the option of 1 or 2 stops from there. As Leclerc began to close in on Perez near half distance, Ferrari stated that it would do the opposite of what Red Bull did, which meant committing to a one-stopper when Perez made his second stop. Perez spent the rest of the race attempting to catch up to Leclerc, regularly lapping a second faster. But he lost time fighting to pass the one-stopping Lewis Hamilton for third, and he also was held up in traffic with AlphaTauri's Pierre Gasly. He never quite caught up to Leclerc, finishing 1.3 seconds behind. Verstappen was calmly ahead of everything, cruising to his 15th victory of the season by nearly 9 seconds. And he's had a lot to say on the possibility of helping Sergio Perez finish in front of Charles Leclerc. With the 2022 Formula 1 season concluding in Abu Dhabi, Max Verstappen isn't sure it would have been fair for his Red Bull team to ask him to support Sergio Perez in his pursuit of Charles Leclerc in the closing laps. To finish second in the championship behind Verstappen, Perez needed to defeat Leclerc, and he was closing in on his Ferrari rival in the closing laps on fresher tyres. In the Abu Dhabi Championship race from the previous year, Perez had staged a very determined and well-targeted defense against Verstappen's F1 title challenger Lewis Hamilton, giving him a boost of roughly 8 seconds over 2 laps. While the possibility of Verstappen doing something like Leclerc, albeit for second place in the standings rather than the world title, was apparently discussed on Perez's team radio channel, Red Bull dismissed the idea, claiming that any such strategy would just offer Leclerc DRS and make it easier for him to fend off Perez. When asked if there was a directive to support Leclerc, Verstappen responded, "No, there was not. But also, that is quite a tricky call to make. You also don't want to end up, of course you can possibly block, but is that fair racing? It's, I think, not the nicest way going out of the season, you know?" And so, only 1.3 seconds separated Perez from Leclerc at the finish line. He had already lost valuable time fighting with none other than Hamilton for position, and he now appeared to be significantly hindered by a race for 13th place on lap 56 between Alex Albon's Williams and Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri. Coincidentally, his 2 predecessors in the Red Bull seat alongside Verstappen. By attempting to attack Albon into turns 6 and 7, Gasly held up Perez and was then the target of gestures from the Red Bull driver when he allowed Perez to pass coming out of the corner. It's safe to say Perez wasn't so happy about the action happening just in front of him, costing him very, very valuable seconds during the race. It looked like Checo was catching him enough to try and actually get a move, but then he lost quite a bit of time with that bit of fuss between, was it Pierre and Alex? Verstappen continued. Yeah, he lost quite a bit of time with that. I was watching the screen. Well, I certainly lost a bit, probably a second, probably more, said Perez, although the timing sheets do not always support this. The Mexican was a quarter second slower than the previous lap and faster than the final 2 laps. It was clearly blue flags, but he was in a fight. It's pretty hard to give up the position. I think he was thinking to go for the move on Albon. I just ended up being there and thought he left the door open. I went for it and luckily I could brake at the last minute. Otherwise there would have been contact. There was no investigation or punishment for Gasly's actions. If he had been found guilty of ignoring blue flags, he would have received a single penalty point on his license, bringing his total to 11, just one short of the 12 required for a race ban. I think in normal conditions that would certainly be a penalty for Pierre, but it's the last race. I'm just happy to go home, not discuss anything. It's how it goes sometimes, Perez concluded. But this wasn't the only incident costing Perez some time during the race, as Helmut Marko believes Lewis Hamilton is partly to blame for his team's failure to finish second in the Drivers' Championship. He believes it has nothing to do with Red Bull Racing's strategic decisions. Marko believes the two-stopper was not harmful to the Mexican. Everything went as planned according to the Red Bull advisor, but Perez had to drive too aggressively in the battle with Hamilton. I think Checo pushed a little too hard, and that's why we had to bring him in earlier than planned, Marko told German Sky Sports. Still, the second place should have been in it according to Marko. It was only the overtaking maneuver on Hamilton where Perez lost time. Otherwise, it should have been enough, the Austrian explained. At the same time, Marko admits that his team was somewhat surprised by Ferrari's strategic choices. We were surprised that Ferrari could run the one-stop with Leclerc. That was actually not in our planning, he acknowledges. Nevertheless, he feels his team can be more than satisfied with Sunday's result and the successful season in general. However, there was someone in the Red Bull camps that had some kind words for Charles Leclerc. When asked by the media, Christian Horner compliments Charles Leclerc's performance to multiple media outlets. The Ferrari driver did not compete for the World Championship with Max Verstappen, but he did defeat Sergio Perez. Leclerc has thus produced something exceptional, according to the team manager. Unfortunately, the one driver we wanted Checo to beat was between the two of them. All credit to Charles on the season he's had. He's been a great competitor. He has raced brilliantly with both our drivers, very cleanly, Horner explained. But Red Bull's performance astounded Horner. Horner was pleased with how Red Bull Racing dominated this calendar year. Not only did the team win the World Championship with Verstappen, but Red Bull also won the Constructors' Championship. According to Horner, his team's performance is thus incredible. If you had offered us this at the start of the season, when we felt we were on the back foot with the biggest regulation change in the last 40 years, I don't think anyone could have envisaged anything that happened this year on track and off track. So what are your thoughts on the season-ending race? Did Leclerc deserve the P2 in the championship? And was this because of a good strategy call from Ferrari or a bad call from Red Bull? And what kind of consequences will this have for Mattia Binotto? Will he be able to retain his position at Ferrari after this result? And how do you rate this season? We've seen some amazing races, but also some boring ones. Let us know all your thoughts in the comments below. We love to read them all. And don't forget to let us know what kind of content you want to see from us during the off-season. We'll try and provide with the most up-to-date content during the winter season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with our content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.